The Stack. People, Business, Technology. With Dan Tomaszewski of Everything MSP.
Hello, everybody. Dan Tomaszewski here with Everything MSP. Welcome to another episode of The Stack, where we focus on people, business, and technology. I am joined by my good friend, Greg Jones with Kaseya. How you doing today, my friend?
Very well. Thank you for having me on.
It's great to have you here. It's great to see you live in person. Of course, you are a world traveler. You never know where Greg is, 1 week, or you might be in multiple countries during just a single week too, right?
Yeah, flying the flag, never know where you're going to wake up.
Exactly. We are live here in Nashville for GTIA's ChannelCon 2025. It's been a great event. Maybe some insights from you as far as what you've seen at the event and so on.
Yeah, really, for me, over the last couple of days, it's just been a celebration, really, of the community. It feels really the energy, you can just feel it basically in the walls. So lots of collaboration, education, training, development, but also as well an underlying, I guess, a passion to want to do more and change within businesses. So really good engagement, good conversations, and that's what it's all about.
Yeah, and, and the whole networking aspect. I mean, we do live in a remote world, but, being able to chat in person makes a world of a difference, right?
Yeah, I think it just lifts that barrier, doesn't it? From these Zoom or Teams calls. But yeah, even since I've been on the MSP side of the fence before vendor world, for me, it was about getting to events. It's that connection, meeting new people, and also just the conversations face to face. Some of the barriers that are there with Teams and Zoom just disappear when you're in person. You seem to connect on a deeper, I guess, emotional level as well. So yeah, it's been powerful.
Absolutely. Yeah. And speaking of powerful, the power of community is real, right? I mean, so when you come together and have that collaboration capability, you truly can learn, especially for MSPs. There's one aspect of, as a vendor, being able to come into a community, being able to learn about what their pains are, where their struggles are, ways that you can deliver products and services to them to allow them to be more successful. But just the whole aspect of, we were just talking earlier, sharing is caring, right? It sounds corny, but truly we live in an IT channel that people are willing to share, successes, failures, and not be afraid to talk about their failures. So what does community mean to you?
Yeah, for me, it's absolutely everything in terms of the sense of community. For me is, in business or as humans, we are better together, that evolution. And let's be honest, if we talk about the MSP space, we're not just evolving anymore. We're literally rewriting the playbook here. And that requires a joint effort from everybody across the community, not only vendors, MSPs, everyone who's involved in our space. And together, we are better, sharing of information. And I think we've come a long way. If we look back over the last 10 years, early days, a lot of people were, I guess, scared of sharing too much information. They felt like they had the secret sauce, that KFC recipe.
Right.
Whereas, that's no longer the case. There's enough business out there for everyone. If we look at the SMB and SME market, there's enough TAM out there for every MSP. It's getting, so if we elevate up and work collectively, I think we are much better positioned as a whole. And then if we bring it back to a vendor perspective, for us, it is absolutely key for us as a business. If I talk about Kaseya, it's all about the community, because ultimately the MSP arm is our direct go-to-market arm. We don't go direct. So for us, our success has a direct correlation with the success of the MSP industry.
Sure.
So that's why we're leaning in so much into community empowerment, education, training, development, because our success relies on the success of MSPs. If we help them elevate their business operational maturity level, well, we will see that tenfold over further down the line.
Right.
So And you can just feel it in these walls over the last few days,
Yeah.
that sense of community and really coming together. The industry, it cares, you know,
Yeah.
if you for the good times and the bad times.
So, I mean, booth time just ended. Had a few days of opportunity where a lot of partners and maybe prospective partners have come to your booth. Um, let's talk a little bit about some of the insights that you've gained from that. Was that an opportunity? Like, were you learning about ways in which MSPs are struggling and you're able to help fill that void?
Yeah, absolutely. For me, that's an integral part of my role.
Yeah.
So some of the things I own at Kaseya, I own our global partner program.
Okay.
I also own MDF, Marketing Development Funds,
Yeah.
for the business and our industry events in EMEA and North America.
Okay.
And for me, it's constantly about evolving, adapting our programs to support MSPs on their journey. So looking at the challenges in the market, what's holding them back, what's setting them aside, what are they winning from, and ultimately rewriting the mold for those programs rather than being rigid programs that are solely focused on empowering our partners. For me, it's, yes, we have incredible technology.
Yeah.
We're about bringing enterprise grade technology down to support MSPs and SMBs across the globe. But it's much more than that, because if you look at our industry, some of the technology out there arguably is commoditized. There's some slightly better than others, but it's about much more than that. How do you support your partners in terms of growth from a business perspective, sales, marketing, understanding their challenges and being part of that journey? So the things that have come out over the last couple of days are, a lot has been around go-to-market strategies, sales, marketing, challenges within how to differentiate themselves in the marketplace. Because although we are seeing an interesting time in the market at the moment, financially, around geopolitical challenges and interest rates and inflation, it's a very buoyant market when we look at it as a whole. Like, this is the best time to be in the MSP space. Even over other verticals, we're seeing SMBs and SMEs lean into technology more to ride these storms. But that requires MSPs to pivot, adapt, and change their business models. Really challenge the status quo is what I would say. Look to pivot into new markets, whether that's co-managed IT, whether it's compliance as a service. That's really important, not from just from a vendor perspective and an MSP perspective, but also if you look at SMBs and SMEs, the number one reason that an SMB will move IT provider and MSP is not because of poor service now. It's actually that MSP doesn't provide the tools, technology, or level of service that business needs to win in the market. So, yeah, it's very interesting where we stand today in the market.
Yeah, and I think too, thinking back to 07, 08, that downturn in the economy, I think what we realized is that there were still businesses that were growing strong, were continuing to invest into technology, but for all the others, they were making damn sure that the technology they had was working, because they didn't want to take a risk of having anything happening, any disruptions to their operations. So I think that won't change, today, through any uncertainty that we have. There's still going to be organizations continuing to make the right investments, but there's going to be all the rest that, they still are going to rely on technology. So we're going to have to continue from that perspective, but also, cybersecurity, compliance, doesn't get a break because of the economy, right?
Yeah, and I think that's interesting. Certainly when we look back in history, at the downturns, what we've seen in recent years is there was a pullback in terms of, in a lot of cases, around budget. Yes, they still needed technology that worked and cybersecurity, but budget lines got cut around technology, whereas it's very different this time round, where businesses are not cutting technology budgets, sometimes even put more in and leaning into technology around AI, machine learning, and also pivoting into new markets like, yes, cybersecurity will always be there, cyber resiliency, but compliance as a service is huge now. And I think when we look at it, why are we in this state? Well, it was because MSP has done such a good job of kickstarting the cogs of industry in COVID, getting everyone operational, that lots of businesses like the bottom end of the enterprise and even top end of the SMB market said, you know what, we were not as agile as most of the smaller guys. And when they looked at the common denominator of those, well, behind it was the MSP community empowering those businesses. So that's why we've seen a huge open in the market around co-managed IT, around that digital transformation piece as well.
That's a great point. So I want to shift gears a little bit. Let's talk about vendor relationships. The vendors are truly, a backbone to the strength of an MSP, and it needs to be more than transactional. It needs to be truly a partnership. There's many resources that are available by vendors, and I think they're often underutilized. I truly believe they're underutilized. Would you agree with that?
Wholeheartedly, absolutely. One of the big focuses that I look at on our not only our community but as our global partner program and our MDF funds is awareness, engagement, pushing that message out to the community to tap into these resources. A lot of vendors out there talk about being true strategic partners. But are they really? What I say to MSPs is you should be challenging your vendors, including Kaseya, and all, picking up the phone and saying, you talk about being a true strategic partner. What does that mean? Show me. How can I lean into you for more things, whether it be sales and marketing, MDF funds, business support, or just advice and guidance. So there's so much, that we can lean into from many great vendors out there, not just Kaseya, but the amount of dollars that are spent into empowering MSPs through vendors is just not being tapped into at all, And
it's way more than fluff. I mean, you don't put these programs in place just to say, hey, look, we're adding all these value adds. You want the MSPs to take advantage of them because they're meant to help them become more successful, and their success provides more success for you as a vendor.
Yeah, absolutely. If we look at, say, our MDF funds alone, that's millions and millions of dollars that I manage, and I have a team of people that approve all MDF that come in, but that is directly to grow MSPs out there in the market, for them to attract net new logos, but also for their existing logos, upsell, cross-sell. We help them identify their white space, and it's not just Kaseya doing this, many vendors. So my thing for MSPs is really lean into your vendors, certainly around now with changing economies and climates, but tap into these programs and funding, to really grow and scale your business.
Yeah, absolutely. So as we work to wrap up, we talked a lot about communities. Communities are great. They are they may not have the structure like a peer group has. Like we, for example, we have weekly calls. They're very informal. The agenda can change from week to week based on the needs of the MSPs. But you guys offer, more of a structured format through your true peer groups. So I'd love to, have you give a little bit more substance to that and like how you help MSPs from that perspective.
Yeah. So I guess if I take a kind of high level view really of this and say, before I even talk about true peer, is my advice out there to MSPs is, whether it be you join our MSP peer group or you should be in a peer group out there, full stop. So MSPs that are in a peer group grow and scale faster than MSPs don't, and that's a fact. It's just industry data. You can look at it from any angle, from a Jay McBain to a Canalys, IDC, Gartner.
Yeah.
It's a fact. When we bring it home to, True Methods Peer, it's all about taking that level of community to the next level, really.
Okay.
So it's all about empowering businesses to do more. It's accountability, it's structure. We have a full structure behind it that helps not only with service delivery, sales, marketing, back office, administration, finance, advice and guidance, but also a structured peer group.
Yeah.
So in True Peer, we put MSPs into what we call a pod, typically between 7 to 10 MSPs in a pod of like-minded MSPs. So that's MSPs that are not lifestyle businesses. They're, nothing wrong with those. They're great out there. But what we like to see in our program is businesses that are looking to grow and scale, have hopes, aspirations, and dreams, but maybe are just struggling along the journey, really. So it's about that collectiveness that we talked about earlier. We are better together.
Right.
So we know about most problems before they hit an MSP, and it's not because it's a team of clever asses running the program. There is some clever people on the program, but it's more that we've seen this hundreds and hundreds of times before. We have thousands of MSPs that have gone through the program over the years. If we look at our program, arguably, depending on when you draw a line in the sand, we've been about for about 14 years when we look at True Methods. So we've seen the ups, downs, trials and tribulations over the years, and we know that we're not just focusing on building your MSP business for today. We're also looking for what's in 500,000 down the road, or 3 or 5 million. What is that exit strategy? Is it an M&A journey? So that when that day comes, you're ready. It's but we see phenomenal growth from our MSPs that are in True Peer, but it's a true sense of community. So last week we had our virtual meeting. It's once a year. We all meet across the world together virtually, and most of our pods, or certainly a large number of pods, actually met in person to do the virtual meeting, which kind of sounds ridiculous, but it shows the level of relationship and the bond that they have. So it's incredible.
That's incredible. Any final words that you would give to an MSP as they're looking to just take their business to that next level and really just knock it out of the park?
I would say challenge the status quo. Be open to change. Our market is shifting so rapidly. I said at the beginning, we're not evolving at the moment. We are literally rewriting the playbook. So I would say lean into your vendors more than ever. Challenge them. How can you help support, grow, and scale my MSP business? That for me is absolutely key. Lean into these programs, because if you're not, MSP down the road is going to be leaning into those programs. So who would you prefer, for you to tap into it, or your competitors? So I would say take action, and really set about, even when you go home from events like this, it's an incredible event, but it's only incredible if you take those actions and you implement them. That's one of the big things that I say to any event is, what are you going to do next? Because it's great coming and getting all the content, but how are you going to cascade this down to your teams, and how are you going to drive this change within your business?
I always say pick 3 to 5 things from an event and that you're going to implement.
Absolutely.
Because if you don't do that and write them down while the event's occurring, out of sight, out of mind, it's gone and nothing changes. So,
One of my tips around that is, usually I say, once you come back from an event in about a week's time, allocate some time in your diary to really revisit what you learned. Because when you get back, you're always firefighting. The phone's going, you're catching up on the emails, you're busy, teams are coming in asking you questions. But really, in a week's time, when you've got some time, review the content and then look at how you're going to cascade that down to your team. And more importantly, just make the change within your business.
Yeah,
Make it
absolutely.
matter. That's the ROI.
Greg, thank you so much for your time. As
Dan,
always, I appreciate it.
it's always a pleasure.
Thanks
For being on.
Appreciate it. For everybody out there, thank you for your time. Greatly appreciate it. Until next time, we'll talk to you soon. Take care, everybody.
Take care.
Thank you for listening to The Stack.